All right, it's all set.
No, okay, you're recording, good, but then we can arrange for it. Okay, Joseph, now you can start.
Yeah. Good morning again. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Matts Ingemanson. As you have already heard from him, he was brought up in Sweden and studied there. And then he came here to the US and he started out here in the field of modern information technology. I met Matts decades ago when he was a member of the Rotary Club here in New York City. Then he moved on and became a member of the Yonkers Club, North New York City. And from there, he made quite a career in Rotary. He became the district governor. And he has already mentioned that he is always very active in Rotary. He was a co-founder of this, I don't know what is it called, the chapter of Rotary history. And then I don't know again how many years ago he established his own fellowship with the Grassroots Peacemaking chapter or group. And I don't know, he has to inform us how many followers has, I think is in the neighborhood of now 5,000. In other words, he is truly a unique networker within Rotary, not only here in the US. As you see, he has friends all over the world, and he works on different projects to promote among peace with the help of Rotary. And I should also mention Sandra. They are one team, and also Sandra was too modest. She is a well-known painter, and I bought 2 paintings from her. So with this, Matts, floor is yours.
Thank you, Joseph. And Joseph actually is been helping in my situation with Grassroots Peacemaking, because Joseph was the host of the breakfast meeting across the street from the United Nations, where we invited different diplomats, and then he asked me to take that over back in 2014. And Joseph, I don't know if you know that, but Joseph is had a long career with the UN, and he then now is part of the Holy See delegation, and he's had meetings, private meetings with the Pope actually. So, but anyway, so thank you, Joseph, for your generous introduction. I'm going to go to my share screen now and see how we do here. Yeah, there we are. Share that screen, and so. And I'm going into the, let me see here. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it. Okay, so I will, let me see here. How do I, I want to do the slide, the view of the slide. There, no. I'm trying to get, no. I never get this right. That's the funny thing about it. Outline a slide presentation. Oh, slide master, no.
Why not the slideshow?
Yeah, where do I find that?
No, up, go up. Above, to the right, slowly, no, below that, right. Home, insert.
Oh, home, no.
Next
home.
one, keep going to the right. Insert,
yeah, no.
next,
design, no.
Next one, transition, and measure, slideshow.
Slideshow, yeah, okay. From the beginning, no, thank you.
There you go.
Okay. What I am been involved with for a while, and Mikhailo Kocevic and I, we worked together on some of the issues on that, so that's why I invited him to come on here. is grassroots peacemaking is a paradigm shift in conflict resolution. And in the old days, conflict resolution was usually resolved by countries having war with each other. And wars was kind of a high stake game where the winner takes all and the loser loses all. But since the First World War, we have found that wars are there are no winners in wars anymore. But we find that everybody wins with peace and everybody loses with war. That picture, by the way, I was advised to put pictures on my slide to make it more attractive, but it has nothing to do with my presentation. That's a picture of our lake outside our house, by the way, which I can see through the window out there.
It's very peaceful.
Very peaceful. So anyway, wars have now become lose-lose games. And I can tell you here, modern wars are very expensive with no end in sight. If we look at American wars, for example, we spent in Syria $15.3 billion, in Afghanistan $975 billion, Iraq $1.7 trillion, Middle East and Asia $5.9 trillion, and we have an additional $490 billion in additional costs and benefits owed to war veterans, which could grow up to $6 trillion over the next 4 decades. And more than 480,000 people have died, and another 10 million people have been displaced. These are official statistics that I found through Google. So, but my question is, what have we gained from spending all this money? Because, you know, we Americans like to see we get value for the money. My conclusion is we haven't got any value. In fact, I think we've even been set back in many of these countries. So, so they must be, so the idea is that we should be able to find a better solution. Well, the better solution is peacemaking in the front end only cost 1% of war in the back end. I believe that Madison Avenue could have invaded Iraq more efficiently than Pentagon and spent less money, and we would have avoided a lot of suffering. The only possibility for peace is that everybody wins. You can't have winners and losers anymore, because the losers will always seek revenge. And then the whole thing goes back and forth like a ping pong game. So the only possibility is that everybody wins. People at the grassroots level are the ones that's suffering from war, and they really want peace. So that's clearly also. Take the Europe, for example. Europe had wars for centuries. They were fighting all the time. But after the Second World War, with the formation of the European Union, the members have now experienced 76 years of peace and prosperity, and there is no war in sight on the horizon. So it's clearly that peace works for everybody. And I'm not saying that everybody in Europe love each other or necessarily are very sympathetic to each other, but they don't fight each other, and they find the benefit for them to do business. And if you take New York, for example, we have 200 nationalities in New York. We don't necessarily love each other either, but we coexist, we do business, and New York, in my opinion, is the greatest city in the world. So diversity and peace really works. Peace creates win-win. If we take Germany and Japan, for example, in the Second World War, their strategy was to conquer other countries so they could secure a supply of raw materials. Well, now they got bombed into oblivion, a lot of damage, and then they weren't allowed to have a military industry. And now Germany and Japan are more prosperous than they ever were in those days, and they don't even have much of a military industry. So it shows that peace is to everybody's benefit. Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, Indochina, millions of people died there 50 years ago. Now they have peace, they build hotels and shopping malls. And they look at the Middle East and say, hey, why are they fighting each other? Why don't they build hotels and shopping malls and have prosperity? So to me, it's very, very simple. We can look at what works and we can look at what doesn't work. So this is the symbol for grassroots peacemaking. Peace is win-win. It's in everybody's interest to have peace. You don't have to love each other to have peace. You just have to agree that it doesn't benefit anybody to fight each other. We have this method, we have developed this method, 4 steps for grassroots peacemaking. The conflicting parties agree that the philosophy is that everybody wins with peace, everybody loses with war. If one of the parties doesn't believe that, they think they can win with war, then of course we can't have peace because the other party has to defend themselves. Excuse me? So then they develop a vision, and the vision is to see how they all can win with a prosperity for all, maybe how they can do business, how they can expand their economies. And then after that, they can develop a mission on how to implement, how to have a mission for the agreed vision. And then they can agree to implement the agreed mission. So this takes time, of course, but I think this is the only thing that really works. Well, we think of North Korea as being a very hostile country, very aggressive. And the reality is that you see the 2 pictures here with Sandra and I. We met with the senior ambassador to the UN from North Korea. I showed him the document here, you see it on the right. And he studied it very carefully. And then he asked me if he could keep it, which of course he could. So, but the reality is that North and South Korea, because we have been in contact with also with South Korea, they both agree to this plan, and they are conducting their relationship now based on the grassroots peacemaking 4-step method. And you may have observed that in the last couple of years, there haven't been any detonation of nuclear bombs, and they've been much peaceful. And when North Korea accidentally killed a South Korean fisherman, I think it was, Kim Jong-un came out and apologized. So the relationship is very different now than it has been in the past. I'm not saying that they are ready to get together in brotherly love, but at least they don't kill each other, and we can move forward, hopefully more positively. Here are some pictures Sandra and I visited the North Korean mission. Here is one of their ambassadors for NGOs, Ambassador Ri, and here you can see the pictures of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. So, and here again, the picture with the senior ambassador. And here we also been in contact with the South Korean diplomats, and we had one of their ambassadors come as a speaker at our church center across the street from the United Nations. We're also supported by the United Nations here, Sandra and me, together with the Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez and the former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and there is Ron Burton, who was president of Rotary International when I was the district governor. Here I am giving a speech at the United Nations, and here Sandra and I are together with Oscar Arias Sanchez, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. We also have the support by the Holy See, by the way, and Joseph knows these people very well. This is the former nuncio of the Holy See, who reports directly to the Pope, and here he gave a speech at our breakfast meeting, and here the nuncio welcomed us to a prayer meeting that they have every year when they open the United Nations. Iran is also considered to be a very hostile state and very big enemy. Well, on 2 occasions, we had the Iranian ambassador come and speak at one of our events. In 2016, we had Ambassador Kosovo, and he basically was very conciliatory in his presentation, and he was hoping to have a better relationship with America. Then 4 years later, Ambassador Kosovo, the Revanchi, the new ambassador, came and speak, and we had a Zoom meeting, and that's recorded and it's available on YouTube. And what was interesting with that meeting was that this was like maybe 2 months after America had killed one of their top militaries. But we kind of expected him to leash out against America, but he didn't do that. He again said that he really would, Iran really would like to have a good relationship with America and a good relationship with its neighbor in the Middle East. Ravanchi was part of the team that negotiated the nuclear agreement with America and John Kerry. So he was the assistant to the foreign minister. And I asked him actually, does Iran really want nuclear weapons? And he said, absolutely not. So he was very pleased with this meeting. I had promised him that I would not publish this recording unless he had approved it. And I asked him at the end of the meeting if it was acceptable, and he said yes. He approved it right there on the spot. And he also expressed an interest of meeting with us in person, which we are planning to do maybe in March. So we also have had the ambassador of Palestine come and speak at our breakfast meeting. And we actually invited the ambassador of Israel, but we never heard back from him. So that's kind of interesting. But we met with the deputy ambassador of Egypt in Washington, and we got a friend, Joseph's and my friend Benny Avni, who's well-known journalist in Israel, to come and speak. And that was very interesting. What he said was that Israel and the Mossad, the secret service in Israel, and their counterpart in Palestine actually cooperate and work together in efforts of saving protecting the lives of President Abbas. So I kind of drew the conclusion that the relationship between Israel and Palestine is like a bad marriage. The fundamentals are strong, but they just keep fighting all the time. It's like they can't live with each other and they can't live without each other. So I think that's a dilemma they have in the Middle East. And here we have we met with the philosopher Bernard-Henri Lévy, and here's a picture with our friend Rabbi Yaakov Cohen, who is a Hasidic rabbi and a follower of Rabbi Schneerson. The Balkans is classic for having a lot of hostilities. Mikhailo Kosovic, who's here on the meeting, is from Belgrade. And one of our friends was the Council of Kosovo in New York. And she's also a Rotarian. She's a member of a Rotary Club. And so we have a very good relationship with her. And then we visited Belgrade because we were asked by one of our North Korean friends to come there. And I was very curious because he had been in Sweden for a number of years, and that's how we ended up meeting him and get to know him. And I knew that he had a friend in Belgrade, so we were curious to see who that was, and that ended up being Mikhailo Kocevic. So he and I, we are maintaining a relationship with North Korea. So we have been able to communicate with North Korea to the US government. and we were advising the Trump administration on their negotiations with North Korea. And that has been helpful in maintaining the relationship there. So, but when we were in Belgrade, the Belgrade Rotary Club had read about me on internet, and the leader there gave a long speech about me that I had absolutely no idea what he was planning to do. And then they arranged for this photo also. But afterwards, they asked me if I could be helpful in arranging for a better relationship with Kosovo. So we had a meeting with Teuta in New York once we came back, which is this picture here. And what I understand is that was a lot of suffering going on between Serbia and Kosovo. And there's a lot of bitterness and hard feeling between Serbia and Kosovo on both sides, actually. So it will probably take some time for that to heal, but at least they stopped killing each other. And I think that's a good first step. And it's always good when people don't kill each other. Yeah. Taiwan is another interesting situation. We had the Taiwanese, we asked for the Taiwanese ambassador to come and speak, and he had his deputy to come and speak. And what we wanted him to speak about was the real situation between Taiwan and China, because it's been my experience dealing with the Chinese that there are always different layers of relationships there. So he came and said this was in 2015, there were 700 non-stop flights every week between Taiwan and China. And Taiwan was the third biggest investor in China. And many of the factories in China were owned and operated by Taiwanese. And these are two countries that are technically at war with each other. So, and what's interesting is that China considers Taiwan to be province of China. So if a Taiwanese businessman comes to China and say, I want to do business there, they will give them complete papers as Chinese citizens, and they can move around. And the Taiwanese businessmen take advantage of that. Taiwan, however, doesn't allow the Chinese to do the same because they feel they would be overwhelmed numerically by the Chinese. But they had 1 million Chinese tourists come every year to Taiwan. And then a week later, we had lunch with them, and they told us that there is a big movement in Taiwan to declare independence. And I knew that Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong agreed on one thing, and that is that there should be one China. They didn't agree on what kind of China, but at least they agreed on that. So I said to them, if you declare independence, then I think the Chinese will be very irritated, and that could be damaging to your relationship. So a month later, they came back to me and said, we have a new policy. We have a policy of status quo. We don't declare independence and we don't pursue reunification. 2 months after that, the president of Taiwan and the president of China met for the first time in Singapore. That's the only time they ever met. And after that meeting, they issued a joint statement that they would pursue their relationship based on status quo. So that started with us in New York. And that's been, there's a lot of friction in the relationship between China and Taiwan, but again, at least they don't kill each other, and they still seems to be able to do business with. We have a good relationship with the Congress people also. Here is a picture with Sandra and me together with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. I think she doesn't need any further introduction. When I spoke to her, she told me that she had been to Pyongyang, and I assume that was when Madeleine Albright flew there. So she seemed to have an interest in North Korea, so I was kind of encouraged by that. We also met with Elijah Cummings, who sadly has passed away. This is the room that Joseph presided over in the past, and he handed it over to me. And this is on the 10th floor in the church building, which is across the street from the United Nations. our fellowship has 4,800 members in 100 different countries around the world. And of course, our mission is that everybody wins with peace, everybody loses with war. So, but there is actually the Palestinian ambassador sitting, and we had a table where people ask questions. It was very interesting, very, everybody enjoys it. Rotary is a very important organization. Rotary is the biggest peacemaking organization in the world. And in fact, Rotary was one of the founders of the United Nations. And the difference between Rotary and the United Nations is that the members of Rotary are people at the grassroots level, while the members of the United Nations are the states. So for the Secretary General to communicate with the states, he has to go talk to the leaders. And not all leaders are necessarily in favor of peace, but people at the grassroots level, I think without exception, are in favor of peace. So here are some pictures of leaders in Rotary International. Here is the president, Holger Knapp from Germany, Schleswig-Holstein to be specific, and his wife Suzanne. And here is the General Secretary of Rotary International. So they are both good friends of ours. And here the past president of Rotary International, Ravi Ravindran from Sri Lanka, is active in peacemaking. He has been involved in peace negotiations between the Sri Lankan government and the Tamil Tigers. And here's another friend of ours, past Rotary International President Gary Huang from Taiwan. And he is currently very active in opening Rotary clubs in China. And here is dear friends of ours, Celia and Louis Jai, past President Louis Jai and past President Celia Jai. They represented the Rotary International president when I had my district conference as governor. But Luis was the one that really got me interested in peacemaking, because I heard, as a Rotary historian, I heard that Rotary had helped Chile and Argentina make peace. And so I asked Luis if he had been involved with that, and he confirmed that he had. And then he said he had also been involved with peace negotiations on Cyprus. So he inspired me actually to explore Rotary's role in peacemaking. And I consider Luis to be a mentor of mine of what I did. So here, for those who don't know, this is the headquarters building of Rotary International in Evanston, Illinois, which is right in north of Chicago. We know that Rotary has 1.2 million members in 35,000 Rotary clubs, but we may not know that Rotary also has 800 employees around the world, because they have, I think they have 6 offices. And the Rotary Foundation has assets of $1.15 billion. So they are a substantial player. Polio Plus, I consider that to be a great Rotary Grassroots Peacemaking project. Wars have stopped when for children to be vaccinated. And millions of people around the world are free from polio now because of Rotary Plus. This picture of Sandra and me, we took because we were asked to take some PR picture with a lake in the background. So I thought that was nice to show. In addition to what I've said, in order to have peace and prosperity, it's also very important to maximize our intellectual resources. People usually talk about that as equality. To me, it's a matter of utilizing our intellectual resources. Women, for example, represent 50% of our intellectual resources. So if we discriminate against women, we are curtailing our abilities to be prosperous. And minorities represent 20 to 30%. So again, if we curtail minorities, discriminate against them, then we curtail our ability to be effective. Paul Harris said that Rotary stands for tolerance. He said that in a recorded speech. And I think diversity is a major reason for Rotary's success around the world, because we've been established in 210 countries and territories, which is more than the United Nations. I think they're in 193 countries. So I think we have done very well. Now, peace allows us to maximize our resources for good, because peace is win-win. When you're in a war, then we're in survival mode, and the only thing we think about is how to survive and how to win the war. So peace allows us to prosper and to be everybody can take care of their family and their societies and so on. Winston Churchill said that America always gets it right after it tried everything wrong. Well, we have tried a lot of things wrong. I think now is the time to get it right. And I'm going to end my speech with that. Peace. Everybody wins with peace. Here's Sandra in front of our lake. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, the questions?
I often get a question about what about the military industry? Would they be positive to that? And usually that's it's like a showstopper. And I would say that I know that every congressman would like to have a military industry in their district because it's good for their production. But the reality is that military industry can be converted to commercial industry. We saw that, for example, in the pandemic, when military industry suddenly was converted into making ventilators. And before the Second World War, we traditionally took our commercial industry and converted it into military industry to support the war effort. And at that point, after the Second World War, during President Eisenhower's time, we decided to have a permanent military industry. And President Eisenhower, in his last speech, warned us for having a too powerful military industry because it could shift the balance in American politics. So I think if I have heard actually that Pentagon sometimes gets equipment that they don't really want because Congress feel that they have to spend money because that's good for their home districts and so on. So I think that if we could see and I'm a strong support. I'm a supporter of strong military because we need a strong military to police the peace. But I have a problem with how we spend the money on it. I feel that we don't spend it as effectively as we should, and some of the money could be used for education and road infrastructure and so on. So I don't believe that you have to be against the military industry to promote peace. In fact, I think that most of the militaries actually prefer peace to war.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
You are saying that you have a breakfast meeting for grassroots peacemaking.
Yeah.
And from those numerous, countless meetings, do you ever come up with specific, concrete steps to do something?
Well, my speech here has evolved from this because when I was district governor, 13 to 14, my job was to support the passion of the Rotarians in my district. And then when I became a past governor, I decided to pursue my own passion, which was peacemaking. And Joseph had then asked me to, together with his partner, Sylvan Barnett, had asked me to take over this breakfast meeting. And I accepted that gladly because I saw that as part of what I wanted to do to pursue peacemaking. And as soon as I got in charge, I invited the ambassador of Palestine and I invited many other. We had the ambassador of Ukraine, for example, and so on. So it evolves out of that.
When I mentioned specific actions, I want to give you example. One time when I was in New Jersey, there was Japanese emperor coming to United Nations because they are interested in getting into Security Council, the United Security Council. And we organized demonstration protesting that Japan cannot be qualified for that because they never ever acknowledged and apologized for the comfort woman, the kidnapping of women from Korea and Southeast Asia to use as sex slave. So that is a very concrete action plan because without justice, I don't think there's a peace.
Well, I'm very much aware of the situation between Korea and Japan, and it's a very sad situation. I believe that Japan of today is not the same as Japan was in the Second World War. They have, I think they decided that it was more prosperous to pursue a peaceful future. Of course, in my opinion, they should apologize for the things they've done in the past. And of course, you probably understand this better than I do, but in the Oriental culture, it's very, very difficult to lose face, and I think that it has a lot of complications with that. But I agree with you; they should apologize.
So, how is the structure of your breakfast meeting right now? Do you do it in via Zoom?
Yeah, we do it via Zoom, and I'm not in charge of that breakfast meeting in New York Rotary Club anymore. So what I do is I do arrange for Zoom meetings from time to time, and so I sort of moved on.
Okay. Anybody else? Chaim, can we all of us see each other's face, not just Sandra?
Oh, I can take off the sharing here just a second. Okay, here we go.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see a young lady here that we haven't seen before.
This is our district governor in New York, Mary Shackleton.
Oh,
Good morning.
welcome, welcome. You should come on your own to give us be our guest speaker.
Oh, I would be delighted. I would be delighted. Good morning, everybody. Actually, I do have a question for Matts. And it's kind of related to your question, Hayon. What is our call to action as Rotarians? What would you like us to think about doing after you've heard your wonderful presentation? What can we do to help further your work in grassroots peacemaking?
Well, I find that Rotarians are very helpful. For example, I've been working with Rotarians in Pakistan and India, keeping the lid on that conflict, and Rotarians between Ukraine and Russia, for example. We've had success there. So I depend on a network, and Mikhailo here is a member of our Rotary Club, but he is also stay in contact with the Belgrade Rotary Club, and he plays a very important role in keeping the lid on conflicts in Balkan, but also is very active in our contacts with North Korea as well. So I find them being very helpful. And the interesting thing is that when you took the 7 areas of focus in Rotary, the first area is sort of an umbrella over the other 6 areas. And I had a conversation with General Secretary John Yuko about that. And he said, that's after we finished with Polio Plus, they're going to be pursuing peace as the main focus of Rotary. But I would say that peace has always been the focus of Rotary ever since it started. And I can tell you this story when when I was in charge of Rotary Global History Fellowship, and Rotary celebrated 100 years, and we had the Rotary Convention in Chicago. We had a professor, retired professor, Rubina Leach, came into our booth, and she said that she knew Paul Harris when she was a girl, and he came up to northern Michigan during the summers. And I asked her if she had any private conversations with Paul, and she said, this was in 1942, she said, she asked him what he thought of the war. And he said, the war was terrible. I hope it will end soon, and so we can bring back Rotary to Germany, Japan, and Italy. And then we must do something for that to never happen again. And shortly thereafter, a group of Rotarians got together in London. Some of them were exiled ministers, and they formed a committee that became UNESCO. And in 2 years after that, in 1945, then Rotary had their charter meeting. When the United Nations had their charter meeting, there was no United Nations. So Rotary provided the infrastructure for that, and Rotarians volunteered to facilitate it. And the State Department asked Rotary to develop the preamble for the future, for the bylaws of the United Nations. And we got a very nice thank you letter from Edward Stettinius Jr., who was the Secretary of State of the time. So Rotary has been very much active in this.
Can you tell me your name again, young lady?
Oh, sure. Mary Shackleton.
Okay. Oh, Shackleton, explorer. Anyway, Joseph, you have Mrs. Shackleton's email address. Would you share it with me?
I can put it in the chat as well right now. So you.
Okay. So we'd like to stay in touch with you too, because we are always looking. Oh, Rabbi Haim is reminding us our session is over and we have to end with a four-way test. Let's start.
Is it the truth?
Is it
Is
fair?
it fair
to
to all concerned?
Will and better
Will and better friendship
Friendship
is beneficial
to all concerned.
I want to remind
Amen.
2 days ago, February 23rd was Rotary birthday. It began in 1905, but the date is February 23rd. So we thank Paul Harris, Gustav Lohr, Sylvester Seals, and Hiram Soar. So we thank them for starting this amazing organization. Everybody stay healthy, and thank you, Matt, again for today's talk.
Thank you.
Thank
And
Thank you very much.
Also, Rabbi, can you save that recording and then send me a link to it? So, or so
Sure.
you,
I'll